Good morning. Thank you. Welcome to New York. Welcome to the 6th Annual Shared Value Leadership Summit. My name is Justin Bakule. I'm the Executive Director of the Shared Value Initiative. And for the next 2 days, I'll be your host, your MC, and even your help desk if you need it. So please come find me over the next few days. I want to really thank and welcome you, all of you, for being here at this important dialogue. Given that both of the presumptive nominees for the U.S. election are from New York, I think it would be appropriate to say the next 2 days are going to be huge. I don't think I will have offended anyone by saying that, but in all seriousness, could there be a more important moment for this dialogue? I'm sure you're as excited as I am for a wonderful agenda. President of the World Bank, Jim Kim, here this morning. Managing Editor Alan Murray of Fortune magazine with the panelists of some of the initial award winners from the Fortune Change the World list. You know, when we come to this event every year, it gives me a wonderful opportunity to really reflect on the past year and the progress of the Shared Value Initiative. And as I said, Fortune this year was an important partnership for us, and we're so thankful for that. But my mind, as I was thinking about the past year and the progress we've all made together, really turned actually to an experience I had in November in India. I was there at the launch of our Shared Value Initiative India platform before our summit started. And I walked into the hotel right outside of Delhi, just like all of you joined us this morning. And I set my papers down on a table and went off to get some breakfast. And when I came back, I was a little bit surprised, actually. There was a young girl standing at my table. To be honest with you, I think we were both surprised to see each other, both sort of wondering if we were both in the right place. But after those first awkward moments and greetings, she started unfolding a story about why she was there. She started talking about an initiative she was working on with her school. It had to do with recycling. She was involved in a program where she was collecting recycling from around the school and areas around the school. And it was in partnership with a recycling company in Delhi that had a shortage of inputs into its business. Now, the company had set some standards, had trained the kids, and made sure that they were engaging this in a safe way. But ultimately, it was providing input and support into this school, into Delhi. Now, this may seem like sort of a modest example of the intersection of a social issue in India and a business there. But what I was most struck by in the conversation was the mindset she had. Now, I have to be honest, you know, as time goes on, these stories that we have, they start to evolve in our mind. We add things in later. But to be clear, while it's still fresh, she didn't mention shared value. She hadn't yet read or could quote Porter Kramer. Over time, that story will change, I'm sure I'll say that. But what she did say was she said to me that this experience had led her to see and understand how businesses solve problems. And those were her exact words. I understand and now want to think about my career in terms of how businesses can solve problems. And here you see her later in the day with a wonderful performance on stage in a panel talking about the same thing. Now, that story and that experience made me go into a bit of reflective mode of the past 5 years since we launched the Shared Value Initiative. And when we were writing the business plan for what would turn into the Shared Value Initiative 5 years ago, I went out and talked to 25 or 30 companies about shared value, about how the initiative could help them advance their interests. And it was funny, there was one theme that kept coming up over and over again. people would say to me, you know what? You can do whatever you want through the Shared Value Initiative, the activities, building the community, it's all important, but don't call it a movement. Don't call it a movement. Sometimes people would drop their voice a little bit, maybe based on where they were sitting in their office, and they would say, companies don't do movements. That's what I was told. Companies don't do movements. Now, needless to say, a lot has changed in the past 5 years since I heard the refrain over and over, companies don't do movements. And I think the story of Rajul and her mindset starts to indicate the power of viewing shared value through the lens of a movement. Now, it's clear that many of you, since the initiative has existed, have gotten power and sustenance from this community of people who are driving change through their organizations. And I think it's clear that what has changed is many people in this room are agitating for a business-led movement for change. And I ask you, back to my joke on the next 2 days being huge, if we could collectively imagine a bigger moment to consider that possibility and think about the political dialogue in this country as just one of many examples, with many other positive examples of engaging the private sector in setting the global goals in the Paris climate change conversations and so forth. Now, we know that business-driven solutions aren't always the answer to every problem. People in the room know that. But I guarantee you one thing that has changed for all of us is that we know it is always worth asking the question. Now, the good news is, I think, over the past few years, we've come an awful long way. I really do. And I have all of you in the room to thank for that, truly. When you look at the awareness, the knowledge of shared value as a starting point, the change has been tremendous in terms of the dialogue. Now, when I start telling a story, if I'm out there speaking about shared value and I start explaining an example, sometimes people will give me that sort of knowing look and a little bit of impatience, because what they really want to know is how. How do we accelerate results? How do we change the DNA of these large companies who have operated for so long with one conception of the role in business and society in a way that drives change? So this is where I have a demand. I make a demand of each and every one of you in this room, because the how comes from you. It comes from all of you. And we cannot accelerate progress on this ambitious agenda without the people in this room delivering results. And this is the demand that we place on you as being a part of this community, and what each and every one of you in this room are expected to deliver to sustain this movement. So with this in mind, and turning to the agenda, you'll see and learn, if you haven't been with us before, this is not a traditional event where you get to show up and meet the people at your table and sort of listen along. But we expect a lot of you. And there's a few things I want to mention. One is our lab series on both days. For the first time ever, these were crowdsourced from you. So these topics that we've got in both afternoons came from the community, and I think you'll really enjoy engaging in these. We had about 70 applications for the slots that you chose from. Secondly, I think we continue to try to push on cutting-edge topics. I'm particularly looking forward to on the agenda the topic of how to drive equity. I think this is a critical topic, one that is maybe uncomfortable for some companies, but I ask you to think whether or not this is going to diminish moving forward, and I think the answer is a clear no. Finally, we encourage you to tweet using the hashtag SVLeaders. Tomorrow, the 5 top tweets will formulate my opening comments. So it's the ultimate retweet if we pick your tweet of what you see and what you're learning here. And then finally, if you joined us last year, we use a question platform to ask questions of all the sessions. So when Michael and Jim are up here in a minute in their session. If you want to submit a question, we use a platform called Pigeonhole. So if you all would right now, go to any mobile device that you have and bring up a web page for pigeonhole.at. Pigeonhole.at. And if you type in the password SVLeaders and hit go, you will find places to enter your questions and the first poll question of the day just to get you started. If you put it on cast your vote, you can see here how you would define success over the next 2 days. And thank you for voting. We're looking forward to delivering on all of these objectives and more, as I said. Now I want to thank you all for joining us. I'm going to ask Michael to join me here in a moment. I also want to give a warm welcome to all of our live stream viewers. We're broadcasting all of the plenary sessions over live stream for the next 2 days, and are thankful for the World Bank's co-production and broadcasting their session through the World Bank website on our behalf as well.